Hi, everybody. It's Chris Petri. Welcome. I'm glad you could be here today. We're actually having some fun in the studio. We're going to create a beautiful painting. This is going to be sort of like a seascape style painting where we're near the water. It's a little mysterious. You don't see the water, but you know it's close by. There's a boat in our scene here. As you can see here, I've actually sectioned off a small part of a larger painting. We talk about that it's really good to sometimes practice smaller parts of a larger painting. It's great practice for smaller compositions. We can use it to build our skills with our color, our color schemes in our paintings and our drawing skills and our brushwork. And it just really is a great way to kind of focus in on one part of a painting and maybe not have an extensive amount of information, because a lot of workbooks that I've seen over the years, and I've been studying watercolor for 15 years now, and a lot of the workbooks that I have a library of hundreds of books, watercolor teaching books. And I notice a lot of the books, you're looking at full finished paintings in a lot of these books, and they're very complex. They're, paintings that the artist that created them took a long time to develop, all the color schemes and the design and all, it might have been from a photograph or a lot went into it probably on a lot of the paintings that we do see in these teaching books that we have as watercolor artists. So what I'm thinking here is if we can go into our workbooks that we have here and there and just section off small parts of it. And it's real simple, just using a regular mat and then maybe a little bit of watercolor paper taped on the back just to make it, smaller if you have to. This is a small thumbnail. It's maybe 2 inches by 3 inches. And you can kind of see by like the, it's only a small section here. But what we'll do is we'll set it across from us, and it's enough information that it's simple, and we can create this sketch and contour drawing and painting very simply, and really get a really great workout, a great composition going here, and practice up on our skills. So I'm going to take you through all the steps that I would normally do to create a painting, whether it's from books, outdoors, any type of subject matter I'm working with. I'm always going to try to do the same thing over and over. So I'll try to bring that here to you now. So the first thing is we see the scene. We say, okay, I'm going to formulate what I want to have in my painting, in my rectangle. Basically, our painting's a rectangle. What are we going to put in that rectangle? And then how much are we going to how much information are we going to leave out? How much information are we going to add in some extra information? So you as an artist, you can do all these things. You can add information to your paintings. You can take away information as you're working. You're the artist. You're in charge. You just go with your gut instincts and what you enjoy and what you like most, and you'll keep developing your taste and your style. So here I'm, again, sectioning off a painting of a larger painting. Great composition here. It's a nice, beautiful shore house along the water. We see the sand right here, so now we can tell this is right along the shore. So again, we're not seeing water, but we know with that boat and this sand here, we're definitely right close to the ocean or bay or lake even. And then we can just create in our minds a little fun story. Maybe we're here, we're visiting. Maybe we're here, this is our place we're going to rent a house, or this might be our place that we just bought. Have fun, create ideas in your mind. Might be our boat here, and we're going to get our boat ready to go out and sail. We're fixing it up. Maybe we're painting our boat. And then we have our little shack here, a little work shack for tools and all kinds of interesting things here. And so let's have fun with this. All right. So this is, you can maybe take a picture of this and or just you can maybe print it out, take a picture and print it out. And but we'll go through our normal progressions here as we always do. So I'm going to take this and set this across from me. And then we'll start working on how we're going to get this scene to all come together. I'm going to zoom out. Again, I use acetate a lot. Acetate's that plastic film. You can, if you have trouble with angles, roofs are really difficult sometimes. I've always tried to work on my roof angles and things, because that's really difficult sometimes to get really good roof angles. They can be very challenging. So you can always use a little bit of acetate with some black Sharpie marker and get some angles and, you know, lay it over the top of maybe a workbook you have, and you can sort of trace out some stuff, and then you have a little more better idea of angles and things like that. So you can hash out your design and your perspective and things like that as you go. Maybe we'll make this more of a simple, I would say, let me do this. If you're sort of new to drawing and you have more challenges with angles and things like that, no sweat. We saw the picture, and we'll put it back on screen again. So if you want to avoid those angles, you absolutely can. You can just draw more of a simple structure, which would be maybe like that. And then we wouldn't draw in that angle of the roof over here, even though it looks great. If you're a little sketchy on getting that angle, no problem. Again, you have other things. You can use tracing paper and be creative and try to get that angle if you can. I would try to do it. Try to maybe draw it out a few times first and figure, you know, basically the angle is going to be the same here and here. So you can have that same angle going across there. And then it's just, you know, this here is pretty simple. It follows this same angle here, this over here, for the most part, you know, like that. So most of these are straight lines. So this is just the thinking process. The some of the stuff we'll do before we paint. So we can see that before we paint, we can do a little sketching first, you know, do some dry runs. So this here, you know, this is straight. This line here is straight. Vertical, vertical, vertical. So all those lines here, as you can see, are all vertical, straight. And then we have the other lines that are going to run more on a horizontal. So this would be like this. So basically you have two angular lines like this for these two angles on the roof. And then you have, this is of course just a simple pyramid shape or triangular shape for this portion. And then here you have the other two angles like this. And these two. So that's essentially how the angles work. And then again, if angles are too challenging and you want to just stick with something more simple, you can just simplify the scene. Again, we're the artist, you're the artist. You can simplify the scene. You just make your triangle shape here. And that's good. And then for over here, instead of having that shed on an angle, you can just keep that shed straight like this. And that would be fine. That would be as we're seeing it in nature. Here we're more to the side over here looking this way. If you were to turn and walk around, if we were walking with a camera and you stand directly in front of the house, this is what you would see. So it's not as if we're changing reality at all. It's just a different angle, really. You might put a tiny bit of, if you wanted to, just to give a little indication of some angles there and some three-dimensionality to that. But that's really it. And the same here. You could do a little, you could always do something on this side a little bit. To bring a little more interesting. angles and that three-dimensional look. But that's basically how we would do it. To keep things simple, if you don't want to go through all the working out the angles and things, that's fine. You can do more of a simple approach like this and still accomplish this beautiful painting. So let's keep going here. Just a little bit of theory. I'm sure some of you skipped past that last portion there. You might already have a good handle on angles and perspective. Perspective is always a challenge for any artist, beginner, intermediate, or professional. Okay, I'm going to get my pencil here and we'll set this across again. Here, I'll work from that. Okay, now again, now this is the thing where let's take a break. Let's take a break. We went over a lot of information right there. Good to take a break now at this point, just for a few minutes, maybe 5 minutes or so, just to refresh. And then we'll come back and we'll start the sketch, and we'll start looking at how we're going to get our preliminary sketch going so that we get everything laid out correctly on our rectangle here, our painting. And so we'll just take a little quick break. All right, we always take breaks. We just came back from a break just now. We went over the basic idea of how we put together our subject matter from a art book by sectioning off a small part of a larger painting. We've got that accomplished. We picked out something we like. We moved our mat around the scene and found that just perfect spot where we like, that we could section off, and we have all the ingredients of all the subject matter we want in that small section, and then we're pretty good. Now we're going to start figuring out how we're going to put that onto our rectangle, our paper. And again, we're going to do our hash marks. We always use hash marks. Hash marks are incredibly useful for the watercolor artist. You have your tape around the outside of your paper. If you didn't want to use any tape on your paper, that's fine too. You can use light pencil marks to do your hash marks with very light pencil mark on your paper. But here we're going to use our magic marker, and we're going to say, okay, the halfway point is where the trees and the house are approximately halfway. The roof line, where the eaves of the roof are. And then the same kind of thing over here. The land sort of angles down a little bit. So over here it's a little lower. So we can always take a ruler if we want. We could take a nice ruler and set it up on our page and say, okay, that's pretty much halfway across the paper. And then if we just go a little lower over here, and that'll give us the feel of the land sort of, the ground and the land sort of sloping down a little bit toward the coast. And again, we're into this. We're thinking of a coastal scene. If you like coastal scenes and you like the ocean and boats and that feel of the shore, this is great for you. This is a great painting. You get into it, you hear the wind blowing in your mind and the ocean waves crashing. You try to feel the emotion of it and maybe make a little story in your mind while you're doing your painting, or while you take your breaks. You might think of something. It's a memory of being down the shore, or things like that. Really helpful for you, the artist. You're trying to gain as much excitement in your own mind and in your emotions, and then you bring that to your painting, and then it translates to a better painting. So here we're going to do our hash marks. We have them. This one's a little lower than this one over here. And now we're ready. We're pretty much, if we want, we can say, okay, where is the gable of the roof, the top point of the roof? Well, that's about here. So if we look at the painting, I'm looking at the painting across from me. This is the I would say this, we'll call this the gable. We could put a little insignia there. Sometimes you don't have to write down the word. You can just put a little point saying that's going to be the top of the roof. And then over here, this was basically where the trees and the shed was. So we could just put again, you can put an insignia there. And we could put shed. Now, actually, this is outside the picture. I apologize. I've been actually working with this, and it's not. Let me see if I could shift my board over. There we go. I apologize for that. Okay, so this was, again, just a quick, this was our, the eave of the roof, where the center point of the painting is, halfway. The eave of the roof. This is the gable, the top point of the roof up here. And then we transitioned over here with our ruler, and we said that the land, the coastal area here is sloping a little bit like this, and this will give us a feeling of sloping down towards the imaginary water. We know the water's there, the ocean. We can hear the waves crashing in our mind, and the seagulls, and we hear all the things, the wind. And then we're over here, and this is where the land slopes a little bit, so our shed that we have is going to be over this side here. So let's keep going. And we're going to do a preliminary sketch again. This is where we lightly, a tremendous care in making a super light sketch, just so we kind of get everything where we want it first, and then we can go in and do our final drawing. So here we're just going to start out and say, okay, this is going to be there's a tree there, and again, we said there's those angles. And we try to, and then we look across me. So I take my pencil and I look across and I hold it up in front of me, my pencil. I take my pencil, hold it up in front of the picture, and just make sure I'm angling things correct. So if I'm trying to see if there's any angles on that roof while I'm drawing. So I'll look up and I'll hold this up and say, is there any angle to that? And that's pretty much straight. So this would be kind of straight from here. A little bit of an angle downward there. Okay, this is very super light. I hope you can see that. I'm just doing some real simple light sketching. And then there's a decent overhang here, so I'm making sure I get that. Then here we're going to have the boat in the foreground. That boat goes about approximately center of this peak of the roof. And then this boat goes across, and it goes pretty much a good deal over here. And then we see the angle of the stern of the boat over here. It's a little bit higher on the back there. Comes around. Sort of a wine glass shape over here. Okay, and then we have our boat. Then we look and we say the shed starts here. The top of the shed's about the same height as this eave of this roof over here. So we make a little pencil line there. And we know that our shed is there. And And then we continue with our contour drawing. And this is the super light sketch we're doing here. And then we put some indications of some weeds and maybe a fence post or just some things here and bushes over here. And then there's some, and then we'll work out the other stuff. But we'll get the tree line behind this shed here with our light sketch, just so we know. That'll be all we have to do with that. And then we can come back over here and we'll get that angle there for that eave over here. There's some bushes and trees and twigs and things over here. The land slopes down over here. We'll take our other wall here. We'll make our line there. There's some bushes there. It's good to get the main then we make another line here. There's some light on top of this boat. We want to make sure that stays nice and bright and white of paper. And then we have the sail. So the sail comes up. Now I see the boat might be a little big, my sketch. So now's the time I go in and maybe I make the boat a little smaller. I'm trying to feel out there's a window here. Then there's a wall here. And then two windows over here, and they're lower. These windows are lower than this window here. And then we'll make the now with this painting here and drawing, we're doing this for fun. It's a composition. It can be a finished painting, but we're just having fun here. Maybe the scale isn't perfect again. Maybe that boat's a little bit too big for this scene. Maybe I just, for some reason, maybe I did the house too big. I'm not sure. But as we paint it and get completed, we'll see some of the ways that we could improve on it the next time. We can paint this again and again, a couple times. But that's pretty much the preliminary sketch. Now what I'll do is I'll go in and we'll do a final sketch over the top of this one. And we'll make any changes too that we might think we need. But I think this might be good. I think there's a rowboat over here, so we'll do that on our next go. So right now we're going to take another break for a few minutes, and then we'll come back and we'll do our final contour drawing over the top of our preliminary sketch, and then we'll be ready to paint. All right, and we just took a little break. Breaks are great, just to relax a little bit, come back fresh. Now we're at the point where we did our preliminary sketch. We pretty much, I did go with doing the angles of the roof like we saw in the picture in our watercolor workbook. And so I did stick with those angles. And what's great about doing a preliminary sketch is you can step back. Once you do it, step back and look at it and go, okay, look at it compared to the picture you're working from, or even if you're outdoors and you do a preliminary sketch, if you're working outdoors and doing a live, plein air drawing and painting, or whatever your subject matter is, when you do a preliminary sketch, super light preliminary sketch, you can make changes and look, step back, take a break, come back, look at it and go, okay, can I make anything look a little better? Can I change anything? And then this is where I would look at this and say, I'm pretty happy with this the way it is. And I might make a few minor changes and add a few things so that I see in the picture, just so I capture that when I'm painting. But I will go over this with a final contour drawing, and it's good practice and good for drawing. So I'm going to go for it now, and I'm going to and I notice here there's some branches there. This is darker. I might shade that a little bit. I see there's a stripe in the boat there. And again, I'm sort of doing a journey through the picture here with my drawing. I might make some things a little more, have some lively lines here instead of just making everything very angular. I might put some curves and swale in things just to bring more excitement. I might make I think I'm going to make the trees and the bushes sort of as if we have a constant wind here at this location where everything is sort of leaning over. So I'll make sure I just capture that in my sketch here. And we'll continue here. We'll go up. And this is helpful if you have your preliminary sketch. Okay. Just want to make sure I get those darks under the boat. So I indicate that with some pencil lines. And then this here is the sand. And I don't think I'm going to put that rowboat in there. There is a rowboat here on this side over to the right. I'm going to just leave that out. Again, you're the artist. You can leave things out if you're happy with the design or the idea you have of maybe deleting out a few things in your drawing. That's fine. All right, looks good. We have in the majority of everything here. There might be a few details I see here. This is that is the motor. And we have a fence post over here. Maybe we'll put another one there. These are nice to have to lead the eye into the painting. And over here, that should be plenty. That's going to be dark there, the darks of the bushes and trees. Same here, and these are somewhat dark. Roof is going to be dark. All right, now it's a perfect time to take a break again. Let's take a break. Relax a little, and we're going to get prepped. Are you excited? We're going to paint just in a few minutes. The best part. Okay, we're back from a break. Again, we take lots of breaks. You can see that I'm trying to do my normal format that I would use if I was painting and creating a painting. So that's exactly how we're going to do it here. We're just going through the natural progressions of creating a painting. So we're caught up now, and now we're to the point where we're going to start painting. Before we start painting, we just want to take one last look here and say, okay, this is very helpful to maybe just do a quick little W on areas that have white paper that you don't want to cover. So if I put a W here on this roof, because this trim is going to stay white, I want to keep some whites of paper. Over here, there's some white trim. This is just an extra fail-safe in case I'm painting and I happen to lose concentration somehow. I don't want to cover over these areas. You can also go in with a little bit of titanium white once the painting is completely done. You can sometimes recapture a few lights here and there, which we might do. But for right now, I'm going to remember that this gable here has some white paper on the trim, on the gables. Same over here. And over here too. So, and then here. So I just want to put those W's there. As I'm painting, it'll help me to remember. Maybe a couple whites here, some bright white paper. And that'll be good. Okay, so now we're ready to go in and do some painting. Before I do that, I'll just do a quick little, just erase a couple lines. And we're ready to paint. Let's get our brush. I'm going to use the number 8 Da Vinci travel brush. I always start out fresh, clean water. I have a tissue handy. I have a apron on as well that I sometimes take some paint off and some water off my brush, or I use my a tissue to take off some water a little bit. And we have our paint, soft, moist paint always. Give it a spritz with spritzer bottle just to keep it so there's a little bit of moisture there, just so that the paint doesn't dry. Okay, now there's two ways we can approach painting right now. You can say there's 2 approaches we can use. I'm just going to put them down so we know. We can use the La Prima approach, or we can use the glazing technique or approach to do this painting. Both are good. Both are great techniques. Artists sometimes, I use a combination of both glazing and alla prima. I've practiced both a lot, so I'm familiar with both. I also, encourage everybody to try to learn both techniques. Alla prima, we're just basically going to go in, start off with maybe our darks, and just go through the whole painting, working from more the darker tonal values, and then working into middle tones, and then finishing up with some lighter tones. Glazing technique typically is using all the lights, so the light tonal values first, glazing over the whole painting with all the light, very light tonal values, just a little bit of water, a little bit of paint, and then building up and adding darker tonal values over the top of that lighter glazings that we do. So it's a buildup of light to dark. So this is light to dark, and alla prima is all at once. So we're going to do alla prima here all at once, starting off with our darker tonal values, and a little bit of maybe some glazing here and there within this also. Okay, the first thing we're going to say is we can definitely see some darks. Let's start out with maybe the roof. We'll get some burnt umber. It's a pretty dark. Burnt umber, French ultramarine blue. A little bit of alizarin crimson in there too as well. Maybe we'll go with a little bit of ivory black. And we're going to get a good dark in there. And a little bit of cobalt blue. And as you can see, I'm really going for the gusto here. Okay, that looks pretty good. The light's coming from the right. Let's not forget that. So we put a little light insignia up here, just in case we need to refer back to that. Sometimes when we're painting, we sometimes forget where the light is coming from, right? That happens to everyone. Sometimes we're so caught up in the enjoyment of everything that we lose track of that. Okay, so we got our darker tonal value over here to start with, and then let's work in some of the green burnt sienna, burnt umber, a little bit of French ultramarine blue. We'll work some of these darker colors in the trees over here. And I'm just having some fun here, flicking the brush around. No need to worry. We're going to try to move, go through this at a rapid pace. We don't want to really be fussing too much, fussing over things all that much. We want to try to just fire everything in there. Raw umber, so we're going to go with a little lighter tonal value there. And I'm going to do some more of that. And then we talked about the winds blowing the trees across the scene. Let's do that. Let's make that an effect of the painting, like an interesting, a little more raw sienna. Olive green, charging some of that. Damp brush. perfect. And you can see here I'm linking up shapes and the darkest darks of the painting. We're gonna okay, now I see some more darks over here. Sap green, burnt umber, French ultramarine blue. There's some darks over here, so we have those nice darks under the boat. And we don't have to worry too much. We'll try to keep working from left to right. This way, if you're left-handed, you'd want to work from right to left across your painting this way. That avoids leaning into your painting and then we're going to get some of those lighter colors. Raw sienna, cadmium lemon yellow, a little bit of sap green. This will be some of our lighter raw umber. Now we're going to go with our middle tonal, our mid-tones here, our tonal values, middle tonal values here. Again, I'm trying to keep the flow of the trees and the brush and the grass and the branches all flowing this way. Makes a nice effect here. Let's try it. We'll go for it. Does that make sense? It really, if you use an effect here like this, it really can make it more exciting. Cerulean blue, I want to start working in a little bit of some cool colors in here. Then I'll just soften that a little. I can change the picture around a little bit if I want to. So now you can see we've done a good amount of work already. We've gotten in some really good solid darks here. And I'm going to go with a dark here, a shadow color under this eave like that. A little bit of blue in there. A little bit of alizarin crimson. And I'm going to add that around the painting. Yellow ochre for some of that grass feel, sand, and alizarin crimson. Then I'm going to use the same flow of the painting. Everything is flowing to the right. All right, let's take a break. Let's not keep going. This could be a perfect spot for a break, and we'll come right back. All right, we took a break, and I actually did just a little bit of work here. And what I did was I started on my shadowing on this side of the house here on this beautiful shore home. So basically, I just used mineral violet, cobalt blue. I used some of the sap green and raw umber. So I'm basically using sort of like all the colors that we used in the trees and bushes over here, and then, but mostly the predominant color would be blue, cobalt blue, maybe some cerulean blue too, and then some mineral violet. So it's sort of a shadowy feel to it, and I put that all over here, and I just kind of worked it in. I left this little bit of white paper here to the left of this corner of the house over here toward the back of this home. I figured there could be some light showing through there so that it feels a little more dimensional, three-dimensional than having everything right up against the house there. So I left a little bit of light going through there. I also erased a little bit, and this is something, does this make sense? As you're working on your painting, you're taking breaks, you can actually notice things that you might like to do a little differently. Since we did section off this part of the painting from a larger painting, we are missing some things. Like in the original painting, there is some water showing all the way over on the right-hand side over here. But since we cropped our workbook painting down, we're going to try to readjust, and so that's what I did over here. I erased the trees over here on the right-hand side, and I'm going to put in some water over here, some ocean. So this way we'll have that feel of the ocean over here on the right. And again, I also added some white paper over here. We'll put some blue in there for blue sky, so that we'll have a feeling more of three-dimensional, as if you can see almost through the painting a little bit. You have your focus when you're looking at the painting. You'll be able to sort of see through some things through this side of the building. Maybe we'll make one of the windows with some light in it, maybe seeing through the other side. That's another thing we can do. That might look really interesting. So let's keep going here, but again, we're doing we're leaving white along this trim on the gable. And again, I'm using, here's where you can use all your mixtures of colors, have some fun. It's going to be more of a shadow color on this side. This is in shadow, this wall here. And then what I'll do is I'll make it a little darker. And what I did here is I made it a little darker over here, the shadowing on this wall, so that we can accentuate this light that's across the top of the boat. And we can add in some different colors over here. So alizarin crimson. And if you want to lighten up a spot, you can do that. You can take a little bit of tissue and blot up a little bit of paint. And we're just going to keep going here. Purple, cobalt blue, mineral violet, is purple, and then some blue, yellow ochre. And we'll keep on working over here. And I'm careful, I want to keep that, the sailboat, some bright white along the top of that sailboat there, and then I'm going to cover that window there. I'm going to stick with the same as the photo that we're working from. And we'll do some roof here. Burnt umber, French ultramarine blue, mineral violet. Alizarin crimson. So again, I'm mixing some colors here. I tend to want to say it's a little cooler. And that's where you can add in some charge and some color. If you see something and you say to yourself, I think that should be a little cooler. If you've mixed something up that looks a little bit too warm, you can add the blue while you're working. This is good paper. This is Arches satin paper, really great paper. Top quality paper will help your watercolor paintings tremendously. If you're working with maybe some more inexpensive papers, you really have a harder time. I have to say that. It's just one of those things with paper. Paper is really a critical thing with watercolors. Better papers, more expensive papers give you a lot more time to add in colors like this and to mix on your paper while you're working. Okay, I'm going to let that be like that. And we'll keep working over here. I'm going to go with alizarin crimson, a little bit of burnt umber. We'll make this red stripe on the boat. And then we can add in a little bit of some, just to break up the same color. We'll add in a little, maybe a little bit of this here, the green, sap green. And then we're going to go in and very carefully we're going to do the shadowing under this side of the boat. And what we want to do is definitely leave some space between the red and the shadow. The red that we just painted. You can wait You can wait until that red stripe on the bottom of the boat dries before you do a shadow here like this. And then I let a few spots maybe just mix and mingle there, but I should have probably kept that line. And you can tap up some paint with a tissue. And then there's some darks here. French ultramarine blue and burnt umber, a little bit of alizarin crimson. And we'll do underneath here just some quick and then purple and blue for some shadowing under here. And it's good just to kind of, some places you let the paint drip down a little bit, and then other places you can leave it like more lighter tonal value. Then we can go back up here and do some darker highlights here. Okay, maybe we'll do a little more green, burnt umber, green, French ultramarine blue, burnt sienna. And we'll put in some darks over here. A little bit of a lighter tonal value there. And some olive green. And we'll come in, maybe we'll do a little more we'll do some more fine, maybe some, we use our needlepoint brush and get in some finer branches when we're working toward the last parts of the painting. And all right, this is a good time for a break. I worked over to this section here just to get a little bit of paint into this shack over here. And we'll come back again. We'll take another break. We've been working 15-20 minutes, and then we can keep working, and we're getting there. We're almost completed now, and we'll get our last bit of our shack in here. And over here we'll put in some blue ocean, beautiful blue ocean colors, and we'll finish some sand over here and a little bit of grass. And then we'll do a little bit of sky color, and we should be all 100% good. All right, we're continuing to work on this gorgeous seascape painting. We have a boat and a beautiful house, and we're just working through this and taking our time, taking breaks. Again, breaks are great. You can see with this painting, I am getting away with, you know, I don't, I would have to say that I do a lot of mixing on this type of, in this type of painting, I do a lot of mixing of colors, but I really do keep the colors pretty, you know, pure and you know, straight out of the tube, but really in a sense. I just mix a little bit, you'll see as I go. And it's, everything is looking good. We have the light coming from the right, so we have our shadows good. This could be a little darker maybe on this wall here. But for the most part, it's looking pretty good. We'll do some finishing touches on the building with the windows, but let's continue to work to the right here. So this this building is sort of a blue. We'll stick with the game plan that we had with the same colors. Then maybe we'll add a little variation to the color, maybe a little red, a little bit of yellow ochre. Okay, and then the roof is a reddish purple, so we'll use our red and purple. And again, we're using the same colors throughout the painting. And now with the glazing technique, that's where we can do some shadowing. So instead of doing the shadowing right away, we can now toward the end of the painting, once everything is drying, then we can come back and we can do some shadowing under the eaves of the roof. Here, a little more over here, under here. And we'll glaze over the top with our darker colors, you know, our shapes of the windows with darker paint, darker tonal value. And that should be pretty much it. And we'll do some more, we'll take our green, sap green, burnt umber, French ultramarine blue, and we'll just sort of get some of the, and again we're going to I'm just adding in some yellow ochre here and there, just to balance the painting a little bit. I have yellow ochre over here. And some sand, that sand feel. And we use some cobalt blue. A little bit of Viridian green. And that's enough to show a little bit of ocean there. That's fine. Okay, let's do our windows. A little bit of shadowing. And I just tried to make sure I could see this line here really well, where this wall is here. So I added in that lighter, a little darker tonal value there, where the window is. And that looks good. And maybe a little shadowing under here, the shack over here. And we said we were going to make this a little darker over here. So we'll use cobalt blue, mineral violet. Maybe we'll use that same mix over here. Cobalt blue, mineral violet. And we'll do that window over again. Okay, that looks pretty good. And a couple little details. And we'll do the chimney up here. And we can go a little darker, French ultramarine blue, a little bit of burnt umber. And this is where you can kind of add a couple darker spots just here and there a little bit to make things a little more exciting. If it's a little dark, you can always and you can go in and do some more darks. If you feel you want to capture a little more, a few darks here and there. That looks pretty good. I think we can add in a sky and maybe do our mast on our boat and we're all set. Let's put in some sky color. I will actually have room there. Simple sky. And I'm just gonna, sometimes skies are fun just to kind of rough them in like this, and they look pretty good. And I'm gonna go the same way with my brush strokes as the wind. We were saying before that the wind was flowing this way, so let's stick with that game plan. And then as the clouds get in the distance, they just get thinner. And a touch of orange at the horizon. And then we'll just get our mast in. So I'm going to use some burnt umber, a little bit of cerulean blue. And I'll just carefully here I'm just going to go with a few lines along the way. Since the sky is still wet, I'm not going to do this. I'll wait. So I would wait till the sky completely dries to finish up the mast. And that's all, and that's it. And it's pretty much, we're completed. We had to do some final, some fence posts over here. I'll just do those quick. Okay, let's let things dry and we'll come back and do just a final few touch-ups and we will be 100% complete. Okay, we had our break. We did another break just to, relax a little bit, and especially now that we're like finishing up our painting, this is a time when if we're painting too long and we're not really taking breaks, we can really have some issues and wind up doing a few things that might really make the painting turn out not as pleasant and pleasing as we would like it to be. So the first thing I was going to say, I know for myself, when I do masks for boats, sometimes it's very difficult to get that straight line, and I've tried to, different methods. This is something where, for this painting, I think it's best I use a roll of tape, and I set it up above here, and I use a ruler like this, a regular metal ruler, and then I just line it up and hold it firm. And then I take my brush. I'm going to use my needlepoint brush. I'm going to get some of the darker, maybe some burnt umber and French ultramarine blue. And then I'm just going to actually hold the ruler up quite a bit so that I can just ride the edge of the brush across. Now this brush has a long point, so that's not going to work. Actually, I'm seeing now. So let's use this brush. Let's see if this one works. Okay, this one works because it has only a small bit of hair on the end of the brush, so I can ride it along the brush and it works okay. So you have to kind of so I did with the ruler. That really worked out good. I'm not going to do the whole line. I'm going to do intermittent spots on the line. And that's good. And we'll take the needlepoint brush, and I'll just do a few rigging lines, maybe just 2 or 3. That's good. And burnt umber, French ultramarine blue, sap green. Then I'll take a tissue, dry off a little bit of the paint, and then we'll just do a very fine bit of branches, a little bit darker. Just a couple here and there. And I'm not going to overdo this here. You can see just a couple here and there. And a couple spots here and there, maybe along this here. This works good. And if you see maybe a line or something that you didn't like, you can, while it's still fresh paint, you can wet the paper a little bit and take some tissue or paper towel and just basically erase it. And then even go over it a little bit with some paint, some splashing, and that takes the attention away from that. And again, do some trial and error, have some fun. That looks good. And then just a couple darks here and there. So here I'm just trying to find a few locations where I thought I could add some darks that would make it look a little more interesting. Maybe a little bit of more shadow under here. And again, if it's not perfect and you don't like the tonal value, you can lift up a few spots. But I think that's good. It needed a little bit of that more darker tonal value under the eaves of the roof there. And you can even do a little more detail once it dries. You can add a little bit of the finer details of the structure. And the same here. And just a few more there. We had a few over here that we drew in before, so we just I'm very careful not to overwork the details here, so I'm very careful to few here and there, and that's pretty good. And this is a little darker over here. And I think that's just about right. I know I could use a little more details with my needlepoint brush here. Some thicker branches maybe here and there. And then maybe a couple All right, that's fine. I might do a darker tonal value here and there. in a little bit of here. Okay, now I'm going to, now it's getting to the point where I'm going to fussing around too much, and that's where I can get into an issue where I'm putting in too many details. So I think that's fine. Let's maybe we'll just zoom in a little bit here. We'll take the tape off. Cover my paint. And we'll zoom in a little bit here. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with this. I could see some things I would like to do better, but overall I think it's pretty good, and we definitely accomplished our goals here of getting everything done from sketching, doing the preliminary sketch, contour drawing, laying everything out, making sure everything is just the way we want it in our picture space, our rectangle. And then once we had that all completed, we worked on our painting and just made sure we stuck with pretty much the game plan of the picture we were working from, and we just changed a few things here and there, which is you have artist liberty to always change things as you see fit in your own painting that you're creating. So never feel like you have to do anything a certain way. You can change things as change things as you go. And all right, so please, I know I always mention this. If you're new here and you haven't been here before, you can always subscribe. Consider subscribing. We make videos just like this every week, and we'll be back next week. And I hope everyone has a happy time with their paintings. Bye-bye.